is to stand in salah with your feet 4 fingers apart, the breadth of 4 fingers apart. All the other extremes are not in accordance with the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For a fixed duration, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the Sahaba asked the Sahaba to stand with their feet spread wide apart and their little fingers of each foot touching with the person in the next person's samne. Take the line. Take the line. इस तरफ तो अंदर है मुश्किल हो रहा है बिल्कुल आप आइए अगर वैसे बैठना फिर भी तनी बैठने की जरूरत है. So for a fixed duration, the Prophet ﷺ did advise the Sahaba to stand with their feet wide spread and their fingers touching with the person next to them in the saf. And that was because the floor of Masjid Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was unmarked and plain. And for that purpose, this was a method of straightening the saf, that if people will stand with their feet wide apart and with their fingers touching, the saf will automatically become straight. And the direction of the saf will be the same. Even in that time when the salah would start, the Sahaba, as we've heard from the scholars, and as it is learned from Athar, when the salah would start, they would bring their feet closer together again and stand properly. So once the saf was made, they will bring their feet closer together, and then stand properly for salah when the salah started. Later on, even that practice was given up in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Anyway, so when we follow these sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, thinking and realizing that we are following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and we're doing such and such thing because our beloved Prophet ﷺ did it, then it takes one to a whole next level of love with the Prophet ﷺ. And as I said a few weeks back, if you bring one sunnah in your life, thinking that this is how my Prophet ﷺ used to do things, then bringing the other sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ becomes easier in your life. Today, inshallah, we just intend to spend like 15 minutes talking about miscellaneous topics and not do a proper hadith majlis. So whatever comes in my heart, inshallah, abruptly and randomly say it. One thing that we have to keep in mind is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the biggest, the highest, the most supreme. Allahu Akbar. Now, when it comes to the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the standard of superiority, the standard of significance becomes the one who is the most connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala की निस्बत होना वो सबसे बड़ी निस्बत है. Allah Ta'ala से ताल्लुक़ होना, to have a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the biggest thing in life. That is the biggest honor for any creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Akbar, the nisbat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Akbar among the relationships. Having a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the highest and the most important among all relationships, all connections. How do we get this nisbat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This nisbat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not dependent on excessive worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we say excessive, it means that apart from faraiz, which are necessary, which are there to be fulfilled, and without which no one can become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but apart from those faraiz, apart from those wajibat, if somebody goes on making excessive nawafil, if somebody goes on keeping excessive fasts, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as a matter of rule in his book, has never promised his relationship, his taqwa or connection with him based on those things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has based his nisbat on taqwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has based his connection on having that fear and respect of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with which a necessary outcome of which is to stay away from sins. Hadaki Mukhtar rahimahullah he has a couplet which explains this, that ibadat mein to hai fasik bhi shamil, मगर आशिकों की निशानी अलग है। इबादत में तो है फासिक भी शामिल, मगर आशिकों की निशानी अलग है। गुनाहों से बचने में गम को उठाना, यही है इश्क़ व मोहब्बत की बातें। To in ibadat, see, the thing is that if you have a special connection with a special one, this specificity, this art of being special, this state of being special, has to be from both sides. So we say that we are Muslims, and as Muslims, as having believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have a special relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we have believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in being the only one who deserves to be worshipped, who is our only ilah. When that is the case from our side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also bestowed special blessings upon us. The most confirmed of those, the most apparent of those, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised through His words in the Quran and through His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that He will not put us into an everlasting Jahannam. He will never put us, if we die on this relationship of kalima, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not put us in Jahannam forever. Will not let us stay there. But even if we've committed sins, we will go through the punishment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us all from that, and then it is a promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He'll pull us out from that hellfire and put us into Jannah ultimately. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being put into the hellfire for even a fraction of a second. Among the mu'mineen, among the people who have said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, there's multiple kinds of people. There's fusaq included in that as well. Fusaq are those people who are openly and repeatedly, perpetually committing major sins, major disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even they have this nisbat of kalima. Even they have this baseline level of iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them a special honor compared to the kuffar. But among those people, Hazrat Rahimahullah used to say that whatever you see around us, we are common in using those things. For example, we have eyes, the non-believers also have eyes. The sun rises upon us, the sun also rises upon the non-believers. We gain benefit from water, the non-believers also gain that same benefit from water. So what is the specialty about Muslims? In those things of the world, Hazrat Rahimahullah used to say that he's an idiot who thinks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bestow the special honor of Iman, the virtues of the special honor of Iman through these things of the world. Because these things are such that they are common between the Muslims and non-Muslims. So these, and we learned in hadith that Prophet ﷺ has said that these things have no value in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Had they any value, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have given a sip of water or a glass of water to somebody who does not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these things are common among every creation, every human being, be it a mu'min, be it a believer, be it a non-believer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hazrat Rahimahullah used to say the difference is that we have been given ibadat. We have been given the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For example, the day of a kafir will start with the rise of the sun. The day of a Muslim will start with the obedience and praying before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the difference between a kafir and a Muslim in all regards. In all regards. If somebody thinks that we should get more of this dunya because we are believers, they are idiots. They are idiots. The rule, the special mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon believers because they have said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah is that they have been given ibadat, that they have been shown the way, that they have been brought to do what is asked and how it is asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way it has been asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the special mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sharia has been given to them, which essentially comprises of the do's and don'ts as told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now among the believers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants those who work hard on their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a special connection with Himself. And through that connection, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala distinguishes between even the common Muslims, even the common believers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the special believers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that difference is, as Hakim Rahimahullah said in his couplet, in his share that I just recited, ibadat mein to hai fasiq bhi shamil. Although they are mu'min, but they may be fasiq. You will see them praying, you'll see them fasting, you'll see them paying hefty amounts in charity, but the special relationship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is a relationship of ishq, which is a relationship of extreme love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is only granted to people who try their best to stay away from sinning, to stay away from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I used to give an example that if you are sitting in a room, if you are sitting in your house, and outside your house your enemies are standing with daggers in their hands, and you call people that anyone who loves me should come and see me. That person who starts from his home and sees the people standing at your doorstep who have huge daggers and knives in their hands and turns away, his love is not credible. The person that you will love the most, the person that you will love especially and more than anyone else, will be the one who would go through all the roads that are filled with people who are trying to stab them and who are trying to stop them from coming to you, and they will bear all the injury, and even then make it to your doorstep, filled. Their clothes will be bloody, their bodies will be oozing blood, and they still, no matter what, they made it to your doorstep. Those are the people that you will love the most. Those are the people about whom you will say, he really loves me. He loves me so much that he does not even care about his clothes, about his body. He does not even care about his very own life, and still made it to me. Similarly, Hazrat used this example and explained that the nafs, the shaitan, the things of the world, the environment of this world, they are all just like the people who are standing with daggers in their hands, and they want to hurt you. They have created an environment that if you want to go and be connected with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will have to face injuries. And if you don't want to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your life will become like heaven. You don't have to worry about anything. If you don't want to go to a specific place where the people are standing with daggers in their hands, you don't have to worry about anything. You can stay comfortably in your home. So if you want to tread the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will be presented with situations in which you will have to bear injuries upon your heart. You will have to bear injuries upon yourself, upon your inner self. You would want to do, you would with such intensity, you would like to do something, and if you do not do it, it will be like you will feel so hurt, as if Hazrat actually used to say कि रूह का जख्म जिस्म के जख्म से ज़्यादा भारी होता है. When you have patience, when you have sabr, and you say to yourself that no matter what happens, I will not disobey my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Come hell or high water, I will not disobey my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then at the beginning you will feel the injury of that on your very soul, and that zakham or that injury is more severe and more painful than an injury that you can get on your body, than a cut that you can get on your body. And this is the way it is, that you have to seek and find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your life. The path to Allah, the path to Jannah, which is a place of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is filled with these kind of challenges. If somebody thinks that they will become a man of Allah, they will become a pious slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes them and loves them in return, and they think that they will be able to do it very comfortably and not having to face any hardships, they are definitely lacking sense. They have no understanding of how things work. When that has to happen, mujahidah has to be done, and mujahada of ruh, mujahada of taking injury on your spirit. So when somebody does that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves them with His extreme mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when somebody, and this should be clarified as well, that even when we, for example, we are going on the road, and a very clear and easy example is that we have an opportunity to commit a sin by looking here and there, by looking in a direction where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want us to look. And if we lower our gaze and take that pain on our heart, because when we do that, our heart, our nafs keeps on pinching us that it was such a lovely sight. Why did you not look there? It was such a pleasurable sight. Why did you not look that way? And you will not find it again. Or you missed a great opportunity of fun. And even then, when you do that, your nerves keeps on pinching. So, when you bear that injury, even when you bear that injury, even then, as a principle, it does not become your right that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should love you. Because out of the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you have killed millions and maybe fulfilled one in part. So as a principle, it does not become your right. You do not become entitled to the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised through the words of the truest and the noblest man on earth to have ever lived, and whose words cannot be wrong. The whole world can be wrong, but his words cannot be wrong. He has said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there and then will put the sweetness of His love in your heart. So it is a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hakim al-Ummat Maulana Ashwar Sahib Khanvi rahimahullah has written in his several books that, and it is actually said in the Quran, he's not pulled it out of his pocket from without basis, without proof, but he has said in his book, and he said it in multiple of his mawa'iz, that to have concern of developing a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and working on yourself and making an effort of tazkiyah is a farz upon everyone. Just like it is farz for ibadat, other ibadat such as you're praying your daily daily faraiz, daily ibadat, fasting in the month of Ramadan. Hazrat has developed a whole list of the faraiz, the necessary things that we are told to do by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that relate to our interior, the world of our interior. And those are also faraiz, those are also necessary ibadat that we have to do and that we cannot do without. Hazrat has said that to work on your batin, to purify your batin, to try and make an effort to gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is farz. And when something is farz, the way to achieve it also becomes farz. For example, you have to pray. You cannot pray without wuzu. So when you have to pray and it is a first prayer, the wuzu of that first prayer also becomes first. This is one example. There are so many other examples. Similar is the case with hurumat. You have to, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made something haram, to go in places where haram is being openly committed, and you have the risk of getting involved in that haram. Going in that place is also impermissible. Similarly, to achieve taqwa and to achieve the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to gain the connection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever methods are there to achieve it, they also become farz. Sitting in the company of the pious people, getting up and staying in their company, socializing with them, is proven directly by hadith and by the Quran, and it is well known through the knowledge of the Quran that this is the method which gets one on the path of gaining a connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah wa kunu ma'a sadiqeen. O people who have brought faith, have taqwa of Allah, wa kunu ma'a sadiqeen, and be with the people. Sadiqeen, the meaning of sadiq, a sadiq person is that who is true in their belief with their heart, with their inner self, and with their outer self, with their amal and with their batin, with their zahir and with their batin. So, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah, and the way to achieve taqwa is kunu ma'a sadiqeen. This is something that Hazrat has written is also a farz upon everyone. Now, there's a few people in this gathering as well and remotely as well who've been asking me about why is it necessary to make bay'at or take the oath of allegiance to someone. Is it necessary? Is it not necessary? Is it useful? Is it beneficial? What is its status according to the Quran and Sunnah and the practice of the Sahaba and the practice of the pious predecessors? So remember one thing, so far we've said that achieving taqwa and working on piety is first. Nobody disagrees with that. Nobody disagrees with the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran, and the Prophet ﷺ has said it several times in its different hadiths. It is such a well-established fact that we don't even need to quote a hadith about it, that the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gained through the company of the pious people. When it comes to bay'at or bay'ah, it is an oath of allegiance that has been established by the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ used to take three kinds of bay'at, and all three of them are proven with hadith. Number one is bay'at Islam or bay'at Iman, which is when somebody would like to become a Muslim, they would promise upon the hand of the Prophet ﷺ that they give testimony that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there is none worthy of worship but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Prophet ﷺ is the last and the final prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was bay'at Islam or bay'at Iman. There was another kind which was bay'at Jihad, which was at the time of Jihad, the people, the Sahaba, would make a promise on the hand of the Prophet ﷺ to follow his order and fight in his leadership. The third kind, which is also reported in Muslim Sharif, is that a group of Sahaba was sitting and another Sahabi, a senior Sahabi, came and asked them, why don't you make bay'at to the Prophet ﷺ? It's reported in Muslim Sharif. Why don't you make bay'at to the Prophet ﷺ? And they asked, what should we make the bay'at for? So that clarifies it, that it was not an obvious thing, that there was no jihad going on at that time and they were already Sahaba. So they asked, what should we make a bay'at on? The Prophet ﷺ, it's a long hadith, ultimately the Prophet ﷺ, they made bay'at on the hand of the Prophet ﷺ. Muslim people, and not at a time of jihad, they made bay'at with the Prophet ﷺ upon a'mal, upon we'll do this, we promise to do this, we promise to do this, we promise to do this. All these three kinds of bay'at are established and will remain established till the last day. Bay'at Iman, bay'at Jihad, and bay'at Islah or bay'at Aman. When somebody develops a relationship with a pious person of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when they become serious about it, when they resolve firmly in their hearts that yes, I have to find the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in my life. And why is that love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala important? Because like I said, returning to the example of the people with daggers and knives and swords, to bear that pain becomes easy when you have the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you are going to the house of someone and his house, the way to his house is pitted with pains and worries and agonies, if you have an overpowering and overwhelming love for that person, these things will not matter to you. So to gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes easy for us, becomes like our nature, and to gain that level of love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that nothing matters anymore. And even if we have pains, even if we have worries and agony in following the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that very worry at least becomes meaningless. in most cases what happens is that it becomes pleasurable itself. To gain that status, to gain the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to make the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala easy, when somebody becomes serious about it, they start contemplating about making a promise at the hands of somebody who is allowed to take promises, who is allowed by his teacher, the one who trained him, and the one who was trained, who gave them permission, was trained by their teacher, and then so on and so forth. The chain has to establish and go to the Prophet ﷺ. The people who are roaming around, declaring themselves to be Pir and Mashayikh, and who have no connection with the Prophet ﷺ, who have no application of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ in their lives, they are liars, they are fake, they are quacks, and they are going to, rather than take you on the path of Jannah, they are going to take you on the path of fire. They will take you, your Pir takes you where he is headed. Your Shaykh takes you where he is headed. The word Pir is a word of Farsi. We also use that in Urdu. Shaykh is an Arabic word. Murshid is also used. Murshid basically means Rushd or Rashid or Rushd is to reach somewhere. And Murshid is the one who makes you reach there. So similarly, these are different words used, but Bayt is a promise. One of the reasons I told you is to gain from the love that is in the heart of your Shaykh, gain it and achieve that. And sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't even feel it, and it keeps on working on you, Rasulullah ﷺ has said that if you sit in the company of somebody who deals with in fragrances, if you sit with them, if you sit at their workplace, no matter, even if you don't have an intention, even if you're not consciously trying to get fragrance, when you get up from their place, you will be, fragrance will be emanating from you. You will become fragrant. Hazrat Rahimahullah used to give an example that, there's two kinds of oils. The people who lived in India and Pakistan will be able to understand it better. There's one oil of tilli. No? Tilli. Understand the normal oil that is there. And then there is other kind of oil which is very expensive, which is called the oil of chambeli ka tel. You heard of it, you understand. So as I said, that chambeli, it's a flower, it's a fragrant flower, and that oil is very fragrant. And that oil is very pricey as well. Tilli is the least expensive oil, is the cheapest oil that you can find, that you use on your body. Hayat used to say, in reality they are both the same. Chambeli does not produce oil. That flower does not produce oil. Hazrat said that Shadul Ghani Phulpuri Rahimahullah, who was the Shaykh of Taqimat Rahimahullah, actually took him to the place and showed him how tilli, the normal, valueless, worthless oil that comes from seeds, is converted to the oil of chambeli, oil of a fragrant, valuable oil. He said that there's two steps to it. Number one, the seeds, or I don't know what you call it. It's basically that state where it is rubbed so hard, to begin with, it is rubbed so hard that its skin becomes very thin. And oil is contained in it. So it's like a chilka on it. No, what do you call it? Like a thin covering. So that tilli first is rubbed very hard. Hazrat said, this is the example of mujahada. That first, if you have to become valuable, you have to undergo mujahada. When you become bad with your Shaykh, he rubs you really hard, or he makes you go through some practice that is hard upon you. And different mashayikh have different ways. But anyway, if there is no mujahada, if that tilli is not rubbed hard and its skin made really thin, keep it with chambeli for 100 years, you will not gain anything. If that rubbing part is not done, keep it with chambeli. Getting this. Keep it with chambeli. You will never be able to make it the oil of chambeli. But if it is rubbed really hard and the skin becomes really thin, then keep it in the company of chambeli even for a few days. That valueless oil of tilli will become the oil of chambeli, and will now, if you take it to the market, its value will be multiple folds more. Its value will be multiple folds more. So two things have to happen: mujahada and sohbat. Mujahada, or it has to be rubbed against and made really thin, so that it can accept the effects of its environment, of the good environment. And then when it is kept with chambeli for a while, even in a matter of a few days, it becomes the oil of chambeli. It is still that same tail, same oil, but now it is of much more value. I don't know where that started. What were we discussing about?
Bayat.
Right. So when somebody becomes serious, they start contemplating about finding a sheikh in their life. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us a realization of this. The people who have been serious about this, who have committed at the hands of a sheikh. Why do we need this commitment? It is not necessary. Like I said, it is not first. It is something that is a sunnah or a mustahab. But the thing is that a person who has tasted biryani cannot explain it in their words. The people who have become serious and worked hard on themselves and got connected with the sheikh, only they know the beauties and the taste that is hidden within. And for them, it is a very obvious thing. It's something really obvious that there comes a stage in tariq where a person starts to think, this is such an obvious thing. Why does the world not know about it? This is such a great thing. Why do others not take benefit from it? But the people who are on the other side of the wall cannot see what is behind that wall. So for that step to happen, they themselves have to get the strength, find the strength within themselves, and then as like a horse starts to run faster and jumps the obstacle, they gotta do it on their own. For the most mashayikh, especially in my lineage, what happens is that when even somebody comes and expresses their desire to make this promise, this oath of allegiance on their hands, that they will. The other benefit of this bayat is that when you promise someone who is living and physical and right in front of you, you gain a sense of responsibility. That I have made a promise. All promises are valuable. There's people who are trying to say that what kind of a promise is this? Right? Every single promise has value in Islam. It's not only particular about you make a promise on the hand of a sheikh that I will become a pious person, I will try to follow the sunnah, I will try to do the faraiz, I will try to fulfill the wajibat, I will try to stay away from whatever the muhrimat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever has been forbidden. This is just another promise, but it is a promise upon a great thing. And it is in fact a promise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The shaykh is only a manifestation who is taking this promise. Every single promise that you make to your wife, to your children, to your slaves, those promises hold value, and we are able to understand the value of those promises. When it comes to the bayt of taqwa, or making a promise of taqwa upon the hands of someone, or on the hand of somebody, of a shaykh, then our nafs, our shaitan starts to confuse us about it. Anyway, when somebody makes bayat, they are basically making a serious commitment that we will fulfill the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and stay away from whatever has been prohibited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Since that person has been there and done that, and how do we know that that person has been there and done that? We don't know. We only trust the judgment of the person who has permitted him to do this. We only trust the permission, the judgment of the person who has actually allowed him to take this promise from other people. And why do we trust them? Because we trust the person who gave them permission, and so on and so forth. That is why the chain has to reach the Prophet ﷺ. If you ask the ulama, there's only two kinds of lineages in the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ who are very, very carefully guarded and protected. One is the lineage of hadith. Every ustad, every teacher in a madrasa, when they teach a hadith, they narrate their chain. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, when he was compiling his book, he has, before every single hadith, he has narrated this chain, that I got this hadith from him, who got this hadith from him, who got this hadith from there. Similar is the case with mashayikh, the true mashayikh, those who are number one following the sunnah of the Prophet. So I'm not talking about those peers and their murids who are spending their time on graves and putting clothes over graves and worshipping graves or worshipping anyone apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be it a saint or a dead soul or a living soul, or in some cases worshipping the dead animals. We've heard that whenever in India and Pakistan there's actually a few mazar, they've built a mazar, and what happened, if you find out the reality about it, there's actually an animal or something buried in it. But ignorant people, they just want to find fun in their life, and then this fun becomes Islamic. This fun becomes a way to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'uzubillah, in their opinion, so they start doing that. I am talking about those people who are strictly following what has been permitted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and strictly staying away from what has been forbidden by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And not only that, but they are following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those people, and then they also have been given permission, they have been verified, they have been authenticated by somebody who is from the lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the spiritual lineage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Those are the people that you can take a promise on their hands and then become serious. And when you have somebody living and physical before you, then you gain a greater sense of being answerable to someone. So if you are, for example, it happens all the time that if you are not coming for example, let's say any salah, you know right away that in next salah or one or two after that, 1 or 2 days may pass, you're not showing up in masjid, your shaykh will ask you about it. So this is just an example. So these are the few things that I wanted to clarify. It is not a bid'at. It is not something that has been innovated after the Prophet ﷺ. Right from the time of Sahaba, right from the time of Tabi'een, this has been going on. And this has been taking place. People have been staying in the company of Sahaba just for the purpose of purifying their inner self. Anyway, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us an understanding of this. The path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes much easier and much more pleasurable after you gain tips and guidance from somebody who's done it. As Dr. Abdul Hayy Sahib rahimahullah, I'll finish with this, has written, we were reading it in our Monday Majlis, that he has written that in India we were going on a hilly path, a mountainous path, and we were going there in the bright sunlight. So we were going there and it was fine, everything was fine. Our guide was taking us there. There came a point where there was 2 mountains just like this, and there was this cleft between those mountains, or whatever, trench between those mountains, and we had to just basically, it was a simple jump that we had to make, and then everything else was fine. Since it was bright daylight, everyone was able to see it, and we were following our guide. When we were coming back, it was almost dark. So before we started, we particularly told our guide that please be very careful when we are passing from that area. We don't want to fall in that, right? So warn us beforehand. We kept on going. We kept on going, and then after a while we asked him, where did that part go? Did we take a different path, or have we not yet reached it? He said, you've already crossed it. Hazrat said, this is the virtue of having a shaykh in your life, that he will take you to paths and he will make you traverse the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will realize he will protect you from going in the wrong direction in so many ways that you will not even realize, that you won't even know about. And when you have reached to your place, you will think about those things when you found Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your life, and then you will get to hear stories of other people who may have fallen down that trench, or who are trying really hard in their life to find the way but are not able to. And they are trying sincerely, but they just don't have a guide. A common example in everything is that we don't do anything. Even if we have to go to Walmart, that in a new city, we first pull it up on Google Maps. We follow the direction it gives. If you are in an unknown place at night time, we don't, even when we know, we think that we can take a better or more straight path, we don't deviate away from our guide. That our guide is telling us, Google Maps is telling us to take a left here, we'll take it. No matter if we are even, it happened to me that when we were going to the Aqiqah of Ashar Bhai's son, when we were going, I don't know, main road, I am seeing the venue right there, but Google Maps is telling me to take a right there. And I'm seeing that building there. But I still took a right because we were already late. And I did not want to run late. When we came from the other way, I actually learned that if I had gone straight, there was no U-turn there. So I wouldn't have been able to turn around and come to that building. So this is in our daily life, in anything as simple as this, we follow our guide. Why do we have a problem in finding a guide in terms of deen, which is marred by confusions? Even in night time, your eyes become accustomed to the darkness. Even when you are in pitch dark, your eyes will be able to make out things because they will become accustomed to darkness. The matter of deen is that if you go wrong, there's very few chances that you'll ever come back. The matter of deen is that there's so much confusion that finding the right path of deen and being able to follow it. Some people know the right path of deen, but they don't find the strength within themselves. They don't find the spirit within themselves to follow it. But let alone finding that right path of deen is more difficult than finding your physical way in a pitch dark night, because there's so much confusion going on. With the world coming to an end, the Prophet ﷺ has warned us that there will be so many more fitan. There will be so many more trials. My watch is not working actually. Anyway, with the world getting farther and farther from the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ has warned us that there will be much more fitan coming. And those fitan, those trials, those tribulations, those confusions will pertain to the heart and will pertain to the iman of a person. So, to protect ourselves against those fitan, to stay steadfast to finding the right path out, and to stay steadfast on that right path, Ulama Kiram are saying that it is near to impossible, next to impossible, without finding a religious guide in your life. When we go about finding a religious guide in our life or shaykh, we have to make sure again that they are following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, they are staying away from hurumat, or even if they are committing some mistake, they are not staying steadfast on it, making tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon it. Because everybody makes mistakes. And they are connected with the lineage of the Prophet ﷺ authentically. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us an understanding. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Just make a quick dua and then inshallah we can proceed to dinner. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursaleen. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم إنا نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب عمل يقرب إلى حبك. سمعنا وطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. صلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. From next week inshallah, this sitting will be after Aisha, Friday after Aisha.